It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all here. So my name is Sonny and I'm from Females in Football Events, and we're here to promote the female game predominantly within England. My co-host is Abby Ticehurst, who is a football correspondent and football player herself. Hello, Abby.
Hi. Morning.
Morning. Abby, I'm really excited.
Me too.
I'm really excited. This is FIFE's first ever interview, and we've gone straight into it, and we've gone international.
Yeah, I feel like we've started big here.
We are starting big. We have, and we are starting with Italy, which I'm really excited to say. And I came across this really interesting report entitled "Explaining the Difference Between Men's and Women's Football." And it's recently published. I think it was beginning of August 2021. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce Michaela, Luca, and Alessio, the authors of the report. Hello to you all, and hello to Italy.
Hello.
Cool. We've got quite a few questions to get through. So I think if we dive straight in, and Michaela, Alessio, and Luca, Abby will start with the first question.
Cool, magic. Let's go. So, can you tell me a little bit about the kind of inspiration behind the study? What was it that made you think, "Yep, we're gonna get this underway and we're gonna research this"?
I go, Michaela and Alessio.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question, Abby. Actually, although we perceive women football to be a recent phenomenon, it is not, because women's football took its first step thanks to independent women of the Care Ladies team, right? We are talking about early 20th century. But unfortunately, the English Football Association decreed that football was unsuitable for women for a given period, right? So finally, women football developed striking the worldwide only in the last decade or so. And especially from 2012, the number of academies of women football has doubled, with around 40 million girls and women now playing football worldwide nowadays. Abby, you know that better than me, right?
Yeah.
This raised a great amount of attention around football, women's football, and stimulated also the birth of statistical comparison with men's football. However, current studies focused on physical features mainly, and also analyzed small samples of male and female players using data collected on purpose. Well, at the same time, although massive digital data about technical behavior of men and women players are nowadays available, investigation of the differences between women's and men's football from a technical point of view are limited. So this motivated our study, which is actually aimed at answering important, compelling, interesting questions, such as, for example, is the intensity on play in women's matches higher than men's ones? And are women more accurate than men in passing? Or does the statistical distribution of male players' performance quality differ from that of female players? So that was the motivation of our study. So the first study at a technical level to understand differences between men's and women's football, just to understand deeply what are the peculiarities of these two different sports. Because generally, unfortunately, for a given period, female football was conceived as a variant of men's football, but it is not. It's a different sport with its beautiful peculiarities and its interesting characteristics. Our purpose was to shed light on these characteristics and the differences between these two sports.
Interesting, and I think that's a perfect angle to research. So your study on the technical front, what did you look into? What matches did you look into? And can you briefly explain the key findings of your study?
Okay, I take this one. Our study reveals that there are several differences between women and men's soccer. For example, we detected that males perform a longer shot and passes compared to the females. This is related also to the physical difference between the two genders. For example, the men have a great strength in their legs, allowing to perform a longer shot passes compared to the female. The men perform also more passes with more accurate pass than women, indicate that there is a lot of volume because there is a lot of passes in male, but with better technical quality compared. So the comparison between male and female. At the same time, women ball recovery time, so the time spent between two events, is shorter than men's. They indicate a better capacity of the woman to recover the ball, but also the lower capacity to retain the ball, showing a more fragmented game. So this aspect results in a higher number of duels, free kick, outsides, clearance, and in match from women. So even if there is more duels in the female soccer, there is a lower number of falls that showing a more royal games from females. Moreover, all of the results could be related to the different individual characteristics between men's and women's teams. I like the fact that the women and men match are characterized by different playing style. So, as Luca said, is a sort of two different game that we don't have to compare between them, but is different and have to be validated, so assessed in different way.
So am I right in saying that your research was looking at 2 World Cups?
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay. And that was the male World Cup in 2018.
Yes, and the other for the men, the past.
And the female in
2019.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And again, just to clarify, because obviously some people will be listening to this and they'll think, you keep on saying, well, the men's game's more accurate, they're better passers, they're stronger, but this is purely based on factual data, isn't it?
Yep, indeed.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Just a little bit more on the conclusions, actually. I just wondered, one of the things that I thought was really interesting was the fact that passes are more uniformly distributed in the women's game. Could you explain that a little bit more?
So, sorry, repeat the question.
So in one of your conclusions, it was that passes are more uniformly distributed in the women's game. Could you explain that a little bit more?
Is different distribution of the events. The number of events, the events is similar, little bit higher in the women match, but it's not statistically significant. There is a different kind of events, such as the number of passes is quite similar, but for example, the number of falls is lower for females, but is a higher number of duels. So resulting in fragmented game because there is less, the females is less accurate, so there is more duels, more free kicks. So it's characterized, the females matches is characterized by different aspects that is beautiful in different way compared to the men matches. So I think is important to highlight that the fact that we don't have to compare the two sports, but we want to look as a females or male or men matches in different way, and it's beautiful in different way, as I prefer say.
So each one has its own attractions, I
Characteristics.
guess.
Yeah.
Characteristics. Sorry,
Peculiarities and
Luca,
attractions.
you're going to say something? Luca?
Can I add some?
Yes. Sorry, we've lost you a little bit.
Yeah.
Luca, you have problem with your connection. Yeah.
Oh, the glamour of technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Let's hope he comes back.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you're back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Regarding Abby's question about the distribution of passes, let me add a bit of information. That is, we observe that in men's teams, there are more central players. That is, there is at least one player who concentrates, let's say, most of the passes. While in female teams, this is more uniformly distributed, meaning that there is no such a very central player. Typically, it may vary from team to team, but in general, on average, there is no such a center player in female teams because they all they play in a more distributed way regarding passes. While in men's football, there is at least one very central player, that can be, for example, Pirlo some years ago, right? Who generally concentrate all the passes, which is fundamental to make the play works. One possible interpretation is that in female football, female football is more a passing game, while and these passes are uniformly distributed among all players. While in male football, this is so, but there is at least one center player, which is the core of the play. This is, of course, on average, typically, not always. It may vary from team to team, but statistically, we find this significant difference between men and women's football.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. I'll need to think about that one and digest it, because that's yeah. So rather than having one playmaker, as you would have in a male game, the female game, that's more diverse. Maybe more of the team is used.
Yeah.
Interesting.
At least in the two World Cups that we analyzed, not necessarily it is so in the national tournaments.
Yes.
And this is a future development of our research.
Interesting. Abby, do you have the next question?
Yes. So who do you feel would benefit from the findings from this study, and why?
For the benefits of our research, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I think the research may be useful to several actors in the football industry. First of all, a deeper understanding of female and male performance and the playing style differences may help coaches, athletic trainers, and so on to design training sessions, strategies, tactics that are tailored for women players. Because now, sometimes, at least to my knowledge, for at least some years ago, the same tactics and strategies of male players were also sometimes applied to female players, but they are different. So a deeper understanding of the technical differences between these two sports may help design tailored strategies, tactics, and whatever. On the other hand, our results may help divulgation, sports journalists tell, and also football fans understand what makes women's football different from men's football. What are the differences between the two? And so to tell matches, tournaments, the behavior of players in a more peculiar way. So we have to start from the assumption, at least in our opinion, that these are technically two different sports. And for example, regarding the passing game, right? So passes are more uniformly distributed in female in players than in male ones. This is a way to look at the game and to explain why a particular team won in female teams and in male teams. I mean, probably since there is at least one center player in men's football, probably it is important to have one important player that play at the core of the game. On the contrary, probably the team alchemy may be more important in women's football. These are just some interpretation, but in general, summarizing, our research can be useful to, on the one hand, to coaches and trainers to design tailored tactics, and on the other hand, to sports journalists to tell better what are the differences between these two sports.
I mean, straight off for me, being I'm a coach myself, and I coach males, and I've just started up a women's football team. So straight off for me, that report, looking at the technical differences between the two, makes my brain think about those sessions, how I would change that, thinking about, okay, well, if the female game and women need to get closer to that goal to be more accurate with the shots, how do we work that ball closer into the box, things like that. So straight off, it being a male coach coaching men, it has made me adapt those training sessions, like you said. Yeah, really interesting. And I think maybe you've highlighted one of them being that playmaker in the male game, and it's more distributed across the female game. But were there any other surprises that came out of that report?
Yeah, as you said, this one is probably the most important. I mean, this different distribution of the game of the passes in the field. I mean, it is difficult to say surprises because if you look at matches quite often as we do, probably some things were already there. But
Yeah.
I mean, I was really glad to see that there are less fools, so that the game is more I don't know, loyal, let's say. So this is something that we find interesting. We found interesting in our research, and at the same time, the idea that is the same number of shots, which is, I mean. We weren't expecting something like this. So at the same time, I mean, the dichotomy between the more duels but less fools seems quite strange, but it is like that. I mean, there are duels, but those are loyal ones. So this was quite interesting to find. Yeah, those are the main things, mainly.
Nice. One of the things that you mentioned in your kind of introduction is this idea of the fair goal height. So actually that women should be playing with a goal height of 2.25 instead of 2.44, I think it was. Are there kind of any further changes that you see kind of possible following the results from your study? Do you think this is something that maybe could possibly be implemented as a result of it?
Yeah, this is an interesting but at the same time tricky question because I mean, if we did some research before writing our paper, no, and this idea of the fair goal height is something which is present in many researches. On the same time, we found that, for instance, female tend to shot from a shorter distance compared to men. So in a certain way, we can say, okay, probably the field length should be shorter. So those are the two main important things that you can look at. At the same time, I mean, we know that during years, every sports got some changes. And the idea is to have a match in each sport, which is more spectacular. Also in male, the rules of male football have been changed over the years. So it is normal to expect some changes. Probably we don't know. which change is best. We know for sure, for instance, in Italy, the idea of changing the height or changing the length of the field is not really welcomed. I mean, there is a certain kind of opposition to this idea of changing the main structure of the field in a certain way. We don't know what will happen. We are sure that changes we will have changes in the future. And as I said, probably the two are the one that are more obvious right now. But I don't know really if we are going in that direction. I don't know, for instance, if in England it is something discussed or approved, liked. I know for sure that in Italy, female football players don't like this idea at all.
Mm-hmm. And yes, because Michaela, we had a discussion recently about this, and through our discussion, it was highlighted that in England, the female game is at a different stage as what it is in Italy right now. And I think that's very much, well, a strong point is on that cultural and acceptance front. Because in England, the Women's Super League, its exposure is now massive. The uptake participation is massive, and I'm sure Abby's got some wonderful stats behind that somewhere on now the people playing within England, the females playing in England. But I think you said when we last spoke in Italy, the acceptance is, should we say, not so kind in general?
I mean, there are some walls to break in the future. I can say that really women football became really popular recently during the World Championship. Also because the male team did not qualify, so there was something better, something different, and we had female playing, and the discussion is in there. We had some very awful declaration in the past by some people in the high level of football industry, but at the same time now we see some changes. I mean, we can experience changes, but we are at the beginning, a new beginning of the female football, also because there was an high participation during the 80s, end of the 80s, but I mean, we are really now restarting to like female football and to appreciate female football. So probably it is early, and saying that we have to change the field seems like saying we have to change the fields because women are not good enough. So probably this is the perception of the female players right now. I think that in the future some stuff has to be done. I mean, also in volleyball, the net is at a different high level because females are shorter than male. I mean, those are physical differences that, on average, of course, that we cannot change. And so probably in the future we will have some changes. Right now, the perception, at least in Italy, is not the same than in other countries in which the roots of female football goes longer in the past.
Yeah, and exactly, and I think even ahead of us, maybe the US is somewhere that's streaming ahead. But kind of leading us into the next question, so kind of trying to really help that female game, possibly in Italy or worldwide. What would you all like to research next to kind of support the female game?
Okay, the next steps will be to study the difference in nation by nation, so understanding if the female have different characteristics from England or Italy or German, to understand which are the differences, the big differences in female matches, understanding also if there is some difference in each competition. For example, in Italy, if the difference between males and females soccer, and understanding if this difference is similar to the World Championship. So the big problem to the evolution of this research is the data. The data is less disponible, so there is less data for females. So we have only few matches tagged from the companies, but in these years, the numbers increase because the interest is increasing in females football, but it's not on the level of the male footballs. In the males, we have all of data from all the matches, all the competition, and also for all the levels. But in females, we have only the top club or only the top championship, and so having at disposition a lot of data from females will permit to have more studies on this topic. So we would like to understand so the difference in competition, also between competition and national competition or continuous competition. So there is a lot of study that we can do on this topic, but if the data is possible to do that.
So is that on two fronts? The amount of data out there on the female game is lacking. So there's not so much, and gaining access to that, is that because the money involved?
Yes, because the data, the money around the football, the men football is high. So we have a disposition. There is more interest to do data from men football than the women right now. But I think it's important to solve this gap and having a disposition also for the females football this kind of data.
Interesting.
Yeah, definitely. If we kind of just delve a little bit kind of deeper into your actual research, would you be able to explain kind of further what you determine as an event? So, for example, you said on average a football match in our database has 1,600 events. What do you mean by an event?
Well, an event can be seen as each ball touch, more or less. And so every time there is something meaningful happening on the field, then there are companies that record that event in some databases in detail. For each match, there are 3 operators. Well, this procedure may vary from company to company, but more or less is always the same. So there are 3 operators, one watching the match for one team and the other for the other team, and the supervisor. Then every time they use a software built to detect these events, every time each operator sees a significant event, then it records the position on the field where this event has occurred, the player or the players involved into this event, the time when this event has occurred, and also the type of the event. That may be a pass, a shot, a tackle, a dribble, a head pass, a head shot, a foul, a yellow card, whatever. There are several kinds of these events, and this is done for each match in all the most important competitions, at least for male football, and also recently for the first divisions of female football. And we hope it will be done for all the divisions of women's soccer in the future. On average, it depends from country to country, but on average, we have more or less 1,600 events per match. This means that we have a pretty with an average time distance of 1 second and something. This means that we have a very detailed description of all the events that happen during a match. Then this is the kind of data we use, the events. Then there is another data source which we did not use in this specific research, but we use in other research, which are the movements, the GPS-like trajectories of players and the referees and the ball during the match. So generally, these movements and these events are matched, and so to have a comprehensive mosaic of the behavior of players during a match for almost all the important matches all around the world. Recently, we also released a public dataset of events for people in science or practitioners to use them and make practice about the big five, so the five most important European tournaments. So, for example, the Premier League, the Serie A, the Bundesliga, the La Liga, and the Ligue 1, and the Male World Cup 2018. So these events are public and are available on a public dataset. We made also a data paper out of it, and we hope that the availability of these public events dataset may help young people, young researchers, and also people in clubs to practice with this data and to discover even more interesting differences in football among teams and between female and male teams.
So if I was to translate that as a, should we say, spectator, so I'm watching a game and the more events there are, the more entertaining that game is for me, I take it, because the more things are happening.
Not necessarily, because it depends on some events are not related actually to the game, to the playing style. That is, there is also an event related to the whistle of the referee, or to some other kind of yellow cards, or some other events that are not necessarily related to the intensity of the game. So it depends also not only on how many events, but how many events of a specific type occur during a particular match. In general, more passes may be either a sign of more exciting game or a more boring game, right? Not necessarily if there is a team passing making passes at the center of the field all the time, this is not very exciting and spectacular. Otherwise, maybe there may be some other teams with a few passes but a lot of shots. So this depends on the quality, on the type of events, not necessarily only on the number of events in a game.
Right. And then comparing that between the male game and the female game, the amount of events on average per game, is it similar or is there a big difference?
It is completely similar. I mean, there are 40 events less for males, but on average. But those are not really interesting. And not the difference is not statistically significant. So we can say that the number of events between men and male and female games are completely the same. So we cannot we couldn't find differences in the pure number of events.
Okay. But then through that data, do you think through another research you can work out the entertainment factor of a game using those events, or would you need further data to add to that?
We could start something from that, but probably also, as Luca was saying before, matching this data with the GPS-like data could give us more insight in the idea of entertainment of the game. This was not the main aim here, but it is something that we can look at, also combining the different sources of data. Probably from here we can say that if there are more shots, probably is more entertaining. I don't know. If you shoot from I don't know, the center of the field without any possibility to do something, probably is not entertaining. So we really need to look at the position of players, how they move together, the the team alchemy, as Luca was calling it, and so on. So further research is needed in this sense.
Yeah,
Let me
and
also
that leads nicely into the next question. Sorry, go on.
let me also add that to two things. First one is spectacularity is cultural.
Yeah.
Right. So for us Italians, well, now with the national team, Mancini's national team, we are changing aesthetically the way we play. But traditionally, for us, spectacularity is that a team just wins. If a team wins, that's okay for our football aesthetics to be satisfied. But for other countries, for example, Spain or others, they don't want just to win, but they want to play in a specific manner, and that is spectacularity. So spectacularity is cultural. Secondly, we don't have information about how people feel a match to be spectacular. In our day, there is no such an information. A possible new research, an interesting further research could be to collect such information. For example, the perception of fans about spectacularity in men's football and women's football, and then to compare this value of spectacularity with the playing style of male teams and female teams. Then, in this case, we will be able to say something more quantitative about the perception of spectacularity, if there is a difference in the perception of spectacularity among males and females in football.
Yeah, I think that would be hugely interesting. And it'd be great to see if some of our viewers have any kind of thoughts on that as well, which would be really good. The next question, which is going to come from Abby, I think is probably the most juiciest question. It's kind of where we go next. So I'll hand you over to Abby.
So do you feel that the women's game has the potential to show similar results on a technical level?
Yes, sure. But from now, females are not professional players or are professional players for a short time. For example, in Italy, the professionalism for women has just been approved and will start from the next season. So have more time to train ourselves could help to increase the technical ability. So it's common to say that more you train yourself, more are you able to do technical skills. So if all the females will be professional, more time to dedicate to sports, to improve their skills, and so come to be more similar in accurate speaking with the males. But as we said, we don't have to compare males and females footballs in this kind of to compare the number of passes or shots or something like that, because are two different sports. They probably uses different tactics, different techniques to solve this gap on physical demands, and so the spectacularity or the kind of events produced during the games changes from men and females, and so it can improve the abilities, improving their status of professional teams, professional players, and dedicate more time and more precise exercise on increase these characteristics.
Interesting. Yeah, I think actually you could, I don't know how kind of, you probably need a bit more research, but so for example, if I look to the Women's Super League here in England, so Brighton and West Ham both been given kind of state-of-the-art training facilities this season. They've got their own kind of, and they were both relegation kind of battle teams last season, and now both of them. So Brighton currently sit 5th and West Ham sit 7th out of 12 teams. So I don't know if that's maybe potentially because they now have that kind of capability to kind of train or more, sorry. So that kind of technical capability is therefore potentially on the rise for them as a team, possibly. Yeah, that'd obviously need a bit more research.
It's also a matter of time, probably, Abby, I think, because the more, as Alessio was saying, in Italy, but in all other countries, female football, women's football is professional since a few years, right? So once a sport is professional, then, the technical level will automatically rise in
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of time. Now the technical quality seems lower just because it's a few times that women are professionals, and also I think that potentially, but this is my personal opinion, not as a scientist but as a football fan. In principle, I think the technical quality in women football maybe and should be even more important than in male football, because while men are also are stronger physically, right? So they can rely a lot also on the physical strength. This is probably less prominent in females because of the structure of the body. So probably I expect, but I could be wrong, but I expect that in the future, in 10 years or so, the technical level of females may be even higher than the technical level of males. As soon as, women's football become as attractive, economically speaking, as men's one, then the technical level will rise, and probably teams should rely more on technique than on males, because males may also rely more on physical strength. That's but this is an opinion as a football user and fan, not as a, we don't have, let's say, empirical
Data to
data,
prove it.
yeah, to
Yeah.
prove it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and again, sometimes you've just got to use your eyes and kind of see these things. And I kind of resonate with what you've just said, Luca, as well. But again, I think investment, it's money, it's sponsorship and things like that. I know some people think that's kind of a dirty word, money, but in reality, if you want something to improve, the investment needs to be there. Facilities, like Abby's touched on, the quality of the coaching, nutrition. There are so many factors that go towards that. But again, if you look back at the males game, say 100 years ago, maybe further, when it first established, the FA first established, first leagues, you had games that were 10-0, 5-0. It was one-sided. One team had all the investment, but then over the years, you look at the male game and it's kind of leveled out pretty much, and it's a bit more of an even playing field to a certain extent. And I think that will definitely come with the female game as well. If we got together in 10 years time and we looked at the investment and the quality of the game as well, would just keep on improving and become more competitive. And like you're saying, Luca, maybe more technical, which in my eyes sounds more exciting. So I don't know if anybody's got anything else to add, or anything you want to share before we wrap things up. But I think we're kind of nearly there, and obviously we've taken up a lot of your time, and it's been really good to kind of delve into your research and hear about it.
Yeah, thank you.
We just want to thank you for this invitation, for the opportunity to talk together about this interesting topic. And we hope we can keep in touch, and maybe if we do further research, we can discuss again together as we do today.
Definitely. Yeah, I'd love to have you guys back when you've got more info to share.
Yeah, that would be really great. Cool. If nobody's got anything else to add, then I guess we'll wrap it up here. So thank you so much for joining us today, guys. It's been a real pleasure to speak to you. Just a little kind of plug of us, I guess. So if you want to find us on social media or anything like that, you can find FIFE on Twitter, and Sonny and I are both on Twitter as well. Well, actually, Sonny, you are on Twitter as FIFE, aren't you, as well?
Yeah.
And this shall be on our YouTube channel, our dedicated one as well. Is it going on Instagram too?
We will go on Instagram TV, and we're also looking into TikTok. That's how modern we are. So
how exciting. But yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. It's been really great to
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And bye.
All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.